Almost a fortnight into the Israel-Hamas war, the U.S. President Joe Biden is expected to ask Congress to approve about $100 billion in emergency funds to arm Israel, Ukraine and Taiwan, besides fortifying the U.S.-Mexico border. Lawmakers expect to receive the funding request by Friday morning. It would be to cover a full year. The package is aimed at insulating the security funding from partisan spending battles. It is expected to include about $10 billion in mostly military assistance to Israel, as well as about $60 billion for Ukraine. The balance of the $100 billion is expected to be dedicated to border security and helping beef up the defenses of Taiwan and the Indo-Pacific region in order to better counter threats from China. Whilst pledging millions of dollars for military aid, the United States continues to remain the highest donor for Ukraine. So the question remains, can Washington afford to fuel the war of its allies when it has just averted a financial crisis of its own back home? Jewish protesters, meanwhile, staged a sit-in protest calling on Biden's administration to push for a ceasefire in Gaza. Meanwhile, a senior U.S. State Department official, Josh Paul, has resigned from his position, criticizing the Biden administration's responses to the situation in West Asia. Israel has also expressed its willingness to accept aid from other allies. For instance, its ambassador to India has recently said that Israel would welcome any help from India to release the 200 hostages who are still being held by Hamas terrorists. The United States, meanwhile, vetoed a United Nations Security Council resolution on Wednesday that would have called for humanitarian pauses in the Hamas-Israel war. The vote on the resolution drafted by Brazil had been delayed twice as the United States, on its part, agreed on a deal with Egypt for an aid corridor. 12 members voted in favor of the draft text, while Russia and UK abstained from voting. Washington said it is direct diplomacy that can save lives at this point.
Bigger than 9/11.
And our correspondent Susan Tehrani sent us this report on the US veto at the UNSC vote for humanitarian aid to Gaza and its resulting geopolitical ramifications. Take a look.
After the United States vetoed the UN Security Council resolution calling for a humanitarian pause on Wednesday, Russia said that it had asked the 193 members of the UN General Assembly to convene for a special session on the conflict. It could decide to put forth a resolution to vote there. And although General Assembly resolutions are non-binding, members insist that they do carry political weight. The United States on Wednesday at the Security Council said that it was disappointed to not see any mention of Israel's right to self-defense at the resolution put forth. We did learn on Wednesday that Israel had agreed to open corridors for humanitarian aid through Egypt's Rafah crossing. Nonetheless, the UN Middle East peace envoy speaking to the council said that there is a very real and extremely dangerous risk of the conflict spilling over to other parts of the region as well, while UN aid chief Martin Griffith, who was speaking from Egypt, said, quote unquote, that we urgently need a mechanism agreed by all relevant parties to allow for a regular provision of emergency needs throughout Gaza. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.